as we take it to the special teams, Parker, where do we stand in regards to Michael Turk, who boomed it for over 51 yards per punt, first and foremost, on 35 tries, which is a lot less than most punters across the nation. A good point for the Oklahoma offense. Gabe Burkich, of course, has been a mainstay for the last couple of years, 20 of 26 last year. So where do we stand in the special teams?
Yeah, so obviously Burkich has chosen to move on. He participated in the NFL Combine and at Pro Day yesterday. So he is, he took the outstanding freshman season that he had in 2019 and a couple solid seasons thereafter and chose to bet on himself. Had another year if he wanted it. Actually, I believe he had 2 more years if he wanted it, but figured, you know what, I'll be one of the top kickers in this draft cycle. Now's as good a time as ever. So Burkich is off to the NFL. He's going to be replaced by a local kid, Zach Schmidt, out of Oklahoma City, whom I believe is a redshirt sophomore. And Schmidt isn't guaranteed this job, but the expectation from people plugged into that situation and people with a close proximity to the team and the locker room, they expect that Schmidt's going to be the kicker. He's gotten some action before in garbage time. He doesn't have quite the leg that Burkich does in terms of strength, but he's tremendously accurate, and he's somebody that Brent Venables and Jeff Lebby are going to be confident sending out there for field goal attempts of 50-plus yards, if that's what it comes to for this Oklahoma offense. You look at the punter position, you mentioned Michael Turk. I think it speaks volumes for Michael Turk's ability that Reeves Munshaw, who was a fifth-year senior last year and had the opportunity to return for a COVID year if he wanted to, didn't even bother coming back because everybody knows and everybody understands that this is Michael Turk's job. He was one of the more impressive punters across the entire country last season. And with him flipping the field for Oklahoma, you really like your chances, and you know that games aren't going to have to be 51-48 shootouts anymore. And I know that's kind of a blatantly obvious statement with the way that the philosophy has shifted. Brent Venables taken over for Lincoln Riley, et cetera, et cetera. But Michael Turk is a guy that has had and will continue to have a huge impact on the Sooners' chances to win any individual ball game because of his ability to flip the field. So you got to be really confident in what the Sooners have at the punter position. Casey Kelleher, the long snapper, is coming back for a 6th season. He will, assuming he plays every game this year, he will break the program record for games played. So that is a mainstay at the specialist position. He'll be a part of that special teams unit. And I guess that leaves us with Holder. And I don't really know who the holder is going to be. There's no clear answer to that. Spencer Jones had that role last year. He was a 6th-year senior. He'll be moving on as a grad assistant with UNC Charlotte. So there is no clear heir apparent to that position, I suppose. If you're looking at the return game, I'm really interested to see what Brent Venables does there and who ultimately ends up handling the majority of the special teams responsibilities on the coaching staff. I would expect it'll be Brandon Hall because as you look at this staff, Hall is probably the one that has the most experience with special teams on his resume. I think when you look at what the Sooners are going to have at their disposal in terms of returners, they don't bring back Mario Williams, obviously, who transferred to USC. Marvin Mims, I think, is your most capable punt returner, all things considered. But I do think Billy Bowman needs a look, returning kicks and potentially returning punts, because he was dynamic in high school in the special teams game. And obviously the reputation under Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma became that, well, the Sooners don't really return kicks if they don't absolutely have to. And you saw last year in Bedlam, Mark, when you employ that philosophy for an entire season and then decide to change it on a dime, bad things happen, i.e. Eric Gray dropping a punt at the 5-yard line and setting Oklahoma State up with a pretty immediate touchdown there to change the course of that game. Now, here's what I also know. Going back to Lincoln Riley's tenure as Oklahoma head coach and with the staff he had in place, special teams were not a priority at all, to the point where they were spending south of an hour on a weekly basis on special teams. So Brent Venables is he's a coach that's not going to let that type of thing fly. he is going to be coaching a well-oiled machine, and that includes special teams. And so you can expect that Oklahoma will be a lot better and a lot more technically and fundamentally sound all across the board on special teams with the Venables regime now in place.
Mims brought back 10 punts last year. Michael Turk, if I recall, he's the punter that came in from Arizona State. And in addition to just his tremendous statistics there, all Pac-12, All-American, coming to Oklahoma, he had a number of videos out there that just showed off his punting skills. Yes, Michael Turk, definitely a weapon for the defense.